Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. Ruchim Abayim. We'll dedicate the class today for our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land and all of those involved in fighting the war against the Hamans of our generation, the Air Force and the pilots and the entire leadership involved in this war. Hashem Yishmar Tzeisam Avoya Me'atav Ad Olam. And all of our brothers and sisters should be protected, and all those who need a recovery should have a refuah krov and a refuah shleima. Rabbi Moshe, I could begin? Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Today's class is dedicated by Evelyn Zelinger, in loving memory of her dear father, Reb Nechemya ben Binyamin David, in honor of his yahrzeit on the 8th day of Sivan. May his soul be an eternal source of light and inspiration for you and the entire family and all of the Jewish people. La'arichas yamim, for many long, happy, and healthy years, and thank you very, very much for your partnership. So we began the Maamar on Shlach. We began a Maamar that was said on Shlach. The Rebbe said on Shlach Tovshin Yud Gimel. It's a Maamar by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Shabbos Shlach Tovshin Yud Gimel, 1953. That explores the story at the end of this week's parsha with the Mekoshesh Eitzim, right? The person who was literally harvesting wood or gathering wood in the Midbar. And we had two classes. We're holding Siv Daled, which is page 6 in the copies. So it's a deep, very deep Maamar. The main thrust was that the Zohar says that the word Mekoshesh means comparing. He was comparing two trees, the tree of life to the tree of knowledge, figuring out which one is greater, which seems like a very, very strange commentary and interpretation, completely detached from the literal interpretation that he was desecrating Shabbos by gathering wood or by collecting wood or by cutting wood, harvesting wood, meaning chopping trees, felling trees and making lumber from it. And the Zohar comes and says this whole novel, very interesting interpretation that he's comparing trees, the tree of knowledge, the tree of life. What's the connection? How does it come in here? Why was there a penalty for this? What was he even doing? What's the connection to the literal interpretation? Well, those were some of the questions that were asked in the beginning of the Maamar. For this, he went into a discussion. For this, you have to understand what this tree of knowledge really is, Eitz Hadas. We usually see it as a tree that has a lot of negativity in it. I mean, it's a tree that brought disaster and catastrophe. The problem with that interpretation is that this Targum Yerushalmi, which is one of the earliest Aramaic translations of Chumash, says that it's a tree that when you eat it, you could separate between good and evil, which is actually a very good thing for people to separate between good and evil. It's the purpose of life to be able to constantly differentiate between what's good and what's not good, to have that awareness, to have that consciousness, to have that mental clarity. I mean, that's, as he says, tachlis avoda. That's the purpose of avoda. It's not a bad thing. And the fact that the tree is in Gan Eden also means that Gan Eden can tolerate us. And Gan Eden is a place of holiness. If Gan Eden can tolerate it, it belongs in Gan Eden. It's part of the furniture, so to speak, of Gan Eden, of the Garden of Eden, which is a place of holiness, and it's the place that the neshama comes to after its life, as a space where it experiences full holiness and the result of everything it created through Torah and mitzvahs, through its life here. Gan Eden is really the radiance, the light that's generated from a person's life, from all of the positivity, all the goodness and the holiness. That's what Gan Eden is. And the fact that this tree is there, it's not some random alien, foreign growth that popped in there and doesn't belong there. It's part of the furniture. It means that essentially Eitz Hadas is a tree of holiness. And this explains well that the Targum says, Targum Yerushalmi, that it's a tree that when you eat it, you can differentiate between tav and bish, between positive and negative. If so, what's the problem with it? Eat more. Everybody should eat it. Everybody should have a taste to know the difference, right? The greatest problems in life and in society is when people don't know the difference between good and evil. Or even if they know, they don't really know. And even if they really know, they don't really feel it. And even if they really feel it, they don't really act on it, etc. But it all begins with das. So from here we're learning, and nonetheless we say that no, the Eitz Hadas created some domino effect of negativity. And the penalties were profound, and it changes history. So from here, the Rebbe concludes that we have to understand that the Eitz Hadas on its own is holy. It's in the realm of holiness. However, it's something that b'ribu hishtalshelus, from many, many developments afterwards, can come something that's negative. What does this mean? So for here, he started a whole explanation. This was the thrust of Seif Gimel, that there's two tracks in Yiddishkeit. There's two streams of life. The way the Maamar puts it is, there's avodah b'medidah v'hagbala, avodah l'mayla b'medidah v'hagbala. Literally, avodah within limits and measurement, and avodah beyond limits and measurements, which perhaps in simple English, the way we could define it is, there's an avodah in which you still never recognize your infinity. You remain in a paradigm of finiteness, of measurements, which is an avodah. It's a way of life, and it's even a way of avodah, meaning it's a way of serving God. And then there's an avodah in which you recognize you're in touch with the heartbeat of infinity in your own life. In other words, a person could literally live their entire life in a box, a good box, a fine box. You can call it even a holy box. When we say a box, it means that ultimately I never recognize my own infinity. Everything remains b'medidah, with measurement and hagbala. And as he gives many examples, the way a person deals with tzedakah, the way a person davens, the way a person learns, Torah, and then he gets into the world of emotions, right? The way we relate to love, the way even experience of love. Also, it's love with a very, very profound limitation, and the way it's expressed practically, as he says, is it's always the love coming back to me, how I feel about it. So rather than love where the person could let go, can really let go. It's a different experience. One is an experience in which I never leave my finiteness. I remain safe, small, and in control, and comfortable, at least in my own perception of what comfort is. It's not really comfortable because it's small, safe, and in control, but it's less fearful. And then there is a different shrek in avodah, which he calls l'mayla b'medidah v'hagbala, which means when a person can tune in to the heartbeat of infinity, which is at the core of reality. Hashem is Ein Sof, and their whole avodah focuses on that. And he went through in many stages, the way it's in Maisa, Torah, Avodah, Milas Chasadim, the way it's in emotions, Ava, V'yira, two forms. And then he said, the way it's in Moichin, the awareness that produces emotions. One relates to a godliness that you could somehow understand, comprehend, put into a box. And one relates to pure infinity, where there is mystery, where you need to let go of every finiteness because you can't have a relationship with truth from a place of finiteness. And then he said, even, this was the last piece, pretty complicated, even Ru'usa de Liba, which is Makif, Ru'usa de Liba means the pure desire of the heart, can also operate on the two levels, as he spoke of the difference of two loyal friends, where their love can go into concealment even though it's never obliterated, and a parent and a child who are in touch with their essence, where the love can't even go into concealment because it's in Lashon of Chassidus, it's not on a level of Gili, it's on a level of Etzem. Those was basically the two tracks that were discussed. It's deep, so you could review it. We discussed it at length. I want to just go further, so I'm just staying with this summation. Now he goes to the next step before he comes back to the conclusion, and that is everything in our experience begins l'mayla. It begins in the source. Pharaoh. Kannst du bringen a kave euch? Kannst du bringen a kave euch? Wer will a kave? Bruchim abayim. So now we go back to how it's in the source. If you remember, he started off that these two experiences, these two tracks, so to speak, there's two tracks, express and local, exists in Avodah. It exists in the Hisbainenus that brings to the Avodah, and it exists even in the spheres above, even in divinity that produces it all. So that now he goes to that step, the Siv Dalet. It's a little bit of a complicated paragraph because it uses a lot of language of Kabbalah. But we'll go through it, and then Be'ikir is to get the Nekud and then to see how it all translates in Avodah. So it says Dalet. The two streams in Avodah that we spoke about. One in which I remain in my finiteness, and all my relationships come from that space. And one in which I have the courage to transcend it. And it's very important to understand, these two things, they're rooted in the spheres. They're rooted in a certain Gili Elikus. They're rooted in a certain revelation of the spheres, a certain revelation of godliness. Generally, whenever my avodah is in a certain style, it's in a mode, it's medidav hagbala. If that's getting challenged, if that's getting cracked, there's a lot of resistance. Because if I live in a certain box, I have mechitzas, I have a safe zone, a safe room, right? Psychologically speaking. And when somebody tries to penetrate it and break it, there's resistance. Because you're threatening very deep existence. And that's the reason why this avodah b'medidav hagbala is it's frail, it's fragile, because it exists only in its realm, and when you try to crack it, it's very, very scary. I'm going to resist it. Like we spoke in the first class on the Maamar, when it comes to something between parents and children, there's a love, a very, very deep love, but the love is b'medidav hagbala. The love is, if you do X, Y, Z, there's an unbelievable love and unbelievable acceptance. If not, it becomes very, very difficult. And the reason is because it's challenging my very, very paradigm. And that's when you have an opportunity to actually crack open and go into a flow of infinity. But it's not easy, because the ego protects me. It's very, and you'll see in the two types of love that we discussed at length, the love in which I love you because of how I feel, how it makes me feel. And one is which I can actually feel you, really, really feel you. The leap between the two, he says, is a leap from finiteness to infinity. It's a leap from being in a space that's closed off to being in a very, very open space. That leap doesn't happen so easily. And often, when the first one is challenged because it's not working, right, it's an opportunity actually, it's an invitation to myself, to ourself, and say, maybe now I can actually graduate from one to the other. So often in life, we're in a particular situation, and the relationships seem to be going well, and then they get very, very challenged. In most cases, in many cases, the challenge is it's an invitation to go from the place of medidav hagbala, in which this love is not going to survive, to a place of l'mayla medidav hagbala. The deepest work is in myself. Am I ready to crack open and flow into a different open space, an infinite zone, so to speak? That's a whole different experience. You know, it's like the spaceship. Once it gets out, once it gets out of the, once it breaks the atmosphere, it's already a whole different matzav. Gravity doesn't work anymore. Right? It works, it's just different. No problem.
Because of the gravity, they can go on the track.
So it's true also in life. My whole life I could be in the atmosphere, and anything that's challenging me, right, I have to reject, I have to resist, because I remain there. Fortunate is the person who says, no, this is an invitation actually to go out of your atmosphere, to go out of your medidav hagbala. For that, I need to be able to let go. Let go of my security, let go of the experience that seemed so safe. And in life, God always sends us those opportunities, those gifts. Some people may call it challenges, and it's the same thing. It is a challenge because it's an obstacle. It's something that threatens what exists now, but it's an invitation to l'mayla medidav hagbala. So now let's see how it exists in the Sfiris. So he says, Dehine Sfiris HaMalchus. When you talk about Sfiris, Hashem's characteristics, the last one is Malchus. Kivan Shates Sfiris Dilo Yerdim Mislapshim B'ri Yitzirasiyah. The 9 Sfiris of Malchus, meaning the higher ones. There's In Malchus, you have the Chachma in Malchus, the Bina, the Chesed, the Das, the Chesed, the Gvur, the First, all the way to your side is 9 Tesviras. Yoidim Mislapshim B'Biyah. They go. Their function is to go down and descend, and enclose themselves in the worlds. What's called Bria Yitzir Asiyah. That's the energy force. You can't say on this to a famous pasuk in Yeshaya, my covet, my glory, I will not give to anybody else. As the pasuk says in Mishlei, her legs go down into a space that's antithetical of life. Malchus, its design, its function is to be able to go into the worlds and therefore to be affected by it, to be in a relationship with it. Whenever you're going to go and manifest yourself and dress up, become malubish, enclosed in the energy, this is what gives the energy of the universe, you become one with it. That's its function. And on this we say, Ragleha Yardis, her legs actually go down. Malchus is the divine energy, the Shechina, the Shechanti, that is manifested in life, in all of its manifestations, and therefore, in order to be manifested in something, you have to be fully present. And to be fully present means it affects you, and you affect it. You're fully present inside of it. You're not aloof. You're not detached. You're all there, yeah. Yeah. You can't say, Ukvaidi la'acher la'etein, which is my covet I don't give to anybody else. It remains completely pristine and pure. No, on the contrary, it goes into the situation. You know, it gets messy. You go into the situation. Kamaykin gambiza, even za, which are the 6 midas. The ime yosiru by chasadon, kamasha kasav zacher chazda. Huh? Zeirampin, yeah. The small face, which basically are the 6 midas chesed through your sight, which are generally connected with chesed, says zacher chazdai. Mikal makayim. Malchus is femininity, which goes into the world. Za is zacher chazdai, which is a remez for zacher, masculinity, which remains aloof. Mikal makayim, that's zacher chazdai, it's a remez. Zacher means he remembers, but Kabbalah teaches zacher as also as masculinity, which remains aloof. This kutchabrichu shchinte. Mikal makayim yadua, she'er chsadam amagulim v'chsadam amachusim. It's known there's a difference between what's called revealed chesed and concealed. When chesed is more concealed, it's harder for there to be nurture. There won't be nurturing. There won't be nursing of the chitzayim, of the external forces. Whenever there's chsadim hamagulim revealed, he'll explain, it's much easier for there to be a nikal chitzayim. The external forces could nurture from it. This is the depth of the pasuk in Mishlei. The fool doesn't want tvuna. The fool wants the revelation of his heart. Literally, it means a fool is just looking to follow impulsive emotions. A ksil is a fool. Tvuna means understanding. In Chassidus, it's a much deeper explanation. The fool is the Yetzer Hara. That's it says in Koheles. The fool doesn't want his galus. He doesn't want tvuna. He wants his galus liboy. What's tvuna? There's bina, and there's tvuna, and then there's galus liboy. So it's 3 stages. Bina is understanding. Tvuna is the letters ben ubas, the son and the daughter, but they're still impregnated in the bina. So it's called tvuna. It's the emotions, the way they're still impregnated in the womb of bina. And then there's this galus liba, is the way the emotions come out viscerally, they actually feel them. So he says, tvuna oisis ben ubas. Tvuna, if you see the word tvuna, right? You have tvuna, tas, taf, vez, vav, nun, hey. So you have beis nun, ben. You also have beis saf, right? Bas. You also have vav and hey. So bina is the understanding. The same bili beinu bina, right? Chachma bina. Midas is the way it comes out. It's embodied. It's the feeling itself. It's a visceral emotion. Tvuna is the bridge. It's the middle. It's like when a fetus is still in the womb of the mother. You have a baby, you have a fetus. If parents are called awareness, moichin, Abba, Ima, Abba is Chachma, Iba is Bina, father, mother, Midas are the children, like it says in Tanya chapter 3. Chachma Bina is like the parents, and Midas are the offspring of the parents. But you have the parents as parents, you have children the way they emerge, and then you have the middle stage when the child is impregnated in the womb of the mother. That's called Tvuna. That's not Bina. It's Tvuna. It's not his galusli, but this is called Chsadim HaMechusim. Like a baby, a fetus is still covered. It's still Yerech Ima. It's part of the mother. So he says, Lo yachpat ksil b'tvuna kim b'is galusli. The ksil, the fool, the Yetzer Hara, he always wants his galus liba. He likes to detach it from the source. He doesn't want tvuna, he wants his galus liba. Meaning, yeah, we'll see, I'll explain. The betvuna is ben obas, sho'av v'yira mechusim ba'moichen.
Jacobson, who is the ksil?
The Yetzer Hara. The ksil is the Yetzer Hara, yeah. The klipa. Chitzainim he calls it there, external energies that want external energy, not the essence. So, love and awe that are still covered by moichin. There will not be nurture for external forces. Even though it's not moichin, it's midas. It's not called bina. It's still subsumed. It's still kolol in seichel, in awareness. Like it says in the writings of the Arizal al Pasuk. On the Pasuk in Mishlei Mayim Amukib Belev Ish V'ish Tvuna Yidleno. Deep water is in the heart of a person. And a person of understanding will draw it out, Yidlena, like Doloi. He will draw the water that's deep. So he says the Tvunu Ava V'yira Klulim B'Seichel. This is Ava V'yir that's deep, it's subsumed in Seichel. V'liyaysim Klulim B'Bina V'nirgash Behem Eira Bina Iyef Shaliyas Mehem Yanika. Because what's felt in them is the light of Bina, the Chitzoinim cannot get nurture from it. In revealed Midas, the Bina is missing, like the baby emerged independently. The Chitzoinim could get nurture from it. The fool wants the revelation of the heart. This is what he wants. He wants always his galus liba, because here he could latch on and get his meals, get his breakfast, lunch, and supper. You understand what he's saying? Huh? Oh, so we have to understand. On one hand, the tachlis is his galus liba, right? It's not only it's a good thing, it's the purpose. That's why he wants it, right? The thief goes to the bank to get money. He doesn't go to a homeless shelter. The bee goes to the honey. The bee doesn't go to. Right. Very good. The thief doesn't want your job. He wants your money. Yeah. What?
Basically, bypassing earning it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably the ability to discern and to earn it.
Yeah, the issue is this. Midas, his galus liba is the tachlis, right? If a person, everything remains just academic, intellectual in the brain, there's something very fundamental that's missing. It's called life. Life is embodied. It's in your body, and that's what his galus liba means. Galus liba means actually your heart feels it. You know, when your heart expands, when your heart gets uptight, you actually feel it in your body. That's what his galus liba means. It's revealed. It's physical. It's a visceral experience. What's the negation here of his galus liba? Whenever there's his galus liba, though, you have to know that because I am in that space of completely experiencing the texture of life, it's also a very, very vulnerable space. Its beauty is its vulnerability. What makes it, it's like I'm a child. Its beauty, it's its vulnerability. I am completely enmeshed. Yeah, I am enmeshed. That's what his galus liba means. I'm not an observer. I'm not in an ivory tower with the luxury of observing and analyzing and discerning and dissecting. I'm not objective, completely not. I'm the embodiment of subjectivity. Yes, this is who I am, and I can't deny it. Galus liba. On one hand, that's the tachlis. It means that it went down and it came down all the way into the guf. You're not living life from the peripheries. You're not living life from the ivory towers, watching things and seeing when it's safe to come out. On the other hand, the ksil wants to detach from tvuna. Why? Because tvuna is what keeps the midas anchored in authenticity. What often can happen is, I completely go into the world of Izgalus Liboy, but it becomes detached from Tvuna. And when it becomes detached from Tvuna, it can become so subjective that it's just about what I'm feeling at the moment, and it can become its own ego trip. The beauty of it is, you're alive, you're feeling. The tragedy of it is, the feelings can completely take over, and they're not rooted in a truth. They're not challenged. It's like, this is what I'm feeling, and the feeling becomes the holy grail, and this is what I worship, and this becomes the essence of reality because I'm feeling it. Huh?
Just tripping.
Yeah. It's not to negate the experience of emotion. The experience of emotion is at the core of life. It's galus liboy. Huh? Even not to worship it. To be able to have a reference point, a compass. You need the circle is important. You don't want to just stay in the dot. You want the circle. But it's a reference point. It allows me to work with my emotions, not to destroy them, to work with them, to enlighten them, like education. That's what education is. So there could be an expansive experience. So it's honoring what is, and yet appreciating that there could be more growth. I'm touching on something. Like, this is my feeling. For a person to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling now, is very, very important. This is what I'm feeling, be able to be honest about it. But to stop there and say, this is what I'm feeling, period, boom, you're out of my life, you're in my life, that's a fool. Huh? Yeah, it's a beginning point, because that's what I'm working with. The ksil wants his galus liba, that's it. What's tvuna? Tvuna is, can we go back to mommy? Right, in simple English, it would mean, what did you really need from your mother? This emotion is coming from a mother. We always blame our mothers, right? This emotion is coming from a mother. What did your mother not give you? Which part of the mother's gaze did you not experience? The maternal gaze at the depth of this emotion, this is what allows the emotions to continuously grow. Or in simple words, it means, every hisgalus liboy is a son or a daughter, but the son and the daughter began in a source. When you go back to the source, you can heal things. Like it's brought in Kabbalah, everything gets healed in the shirish, in the source. So that's chsadim ha-mechusim rather than chsadim ha-megulim. In fact, in Tanya, in Perek Tezayid, the Alter Rebbe speaks about these two types of emotions. And he says that for some people it's very hard to get to his galus liboy. Their souls are rooted in tvuna. Their neshamas, he says this in Tanya, chapter 16. Their souls are rooted in tvuna, and therefore it's actually hard for them to get to his galus liboy. And he says it could be very demoralizing, because sometimes they're not experiencing full-fledged emotions.
They're stuck with reasoning.
Yeah. And it's very, very difficult. He says, Machshava Tova Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'maisa. He explains that Machshava Tova means when you do things based on tvuna, so it's missing that link of passion. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref Machshava Tova to Maisa, the tvuna to the action, to give it wings and soar. Because it should have said, Machshava Tova Maila Lav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kilu Asa. A good thought, Hashem considers it like you did it. It doesn't say that. It says he combines the Machshava Tova to the Maisa. What's the pshat? It says Machshava Tova is tvuna. Maisa is action. When there's a feeling of passion, it fuels the action. It's like gas in an airplane. It's like wings of a bird. When it's still in tvuna, it doesn't have that pathos, that ecstasy. So Machshava Tova Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'maisa. But there's a certain beauty in tvuna that doesn't even exist in his galus liba, because there's a purity there. There's an idealism. In his galus liba, there's satisfaction, because your heart is actually feeling it, so it's very satisfying. It's beautiful, it's also satisfying. In tvuna, you don't have, the ego can't go in there, because it's actually, you don't have that satisfaction. So Tvuna is a very, very pure place. So you should never underestimate it. What it means is, sometimes we're not capable of having the full-fledged emotional experience of something, but you're capable of giving birth to the emotion, at least in an impregnated state. Meaning that the mind appreciates that this is the appropriate emotion now. That's what pregnancy looks like. The baby didn't come out yet, but the mind produces already the baby. That's a very, very deep state. In a way, the ksil doesn't like that because it's a very pure emotion. Once you're feeling it, the cat gets out of the bag. Now it can get very, very wild and impulsive, and it can detach from the source. It's like when a baby's independent, now you have to take care of it. When it's in the womb, it's still feeding off the mother. The oxygen, the nutrition, it's all from the mother. So it's the middas, the way they're being nurtured from Bina. There's a purity there because it's linked to its source. It knows its justification. And it doesn't have the satisfaction of just feeling. So that's why we say la yachbet ksil betvuna kim bezgalus liboy, because from chasadim hamagulim there could be a yinikal chitzayna. So this is not to negate visceral emotions. Yeah. Ibur, it's completely yeah. Yonik, yeah. In Ibur, it's pregnant, and Yinik is already there is an independence, but you're still nursing. But at least you're nursing. That's the midos are still connected. And then there's when you become a teenager and you're like, Ma, I don't even know you. That's a whole different experience. And blessed is the person who can always bring back the midas to the source. Because every emotion is coming from somewhere. There's an awareness that's producing it. I may not see it because I'm just in the heat of the moment. I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm afraid. I love you, I hate you, I'm running from you, whatever it is. Or I'm inspired, right? Yeah. That you should have said. Yeah. So it's back to enmeshment. Malchus is all about enmeshment. It's the Shechina that goes into the world. It assumes the veneer of the world. Even Zah, which is Midas, which is Zacher Chazdai, masculinity, not femininity. That's why women feel the heartbeat of life in a very, very powerful way. Right? And men are like, you have to be objective. Good luck. Good luck with your objectivity. Let's see how far that's going to take you in relationships. So Malchus is completely visceral. That's Malchus. So he says Malchus goes into Biyah, Ragleha Yordis Mavis, it touches death. Even Zah, there's Chsadim HaMegulim and Chsadim HaMechusim. In Chasadim HaMegulim, there is enmeshment. Yeah. You're feeling, you're going into the experience. Now he goes further. Even in Moichin, in Bina, there's a concept of Shvira that could be a brokenness. The Shem Sag Sag. In Kabbalah, we know there's Toyu and Tikkun, and the world of Toyu broke up. The lights in the vessels cracked open. And there was a tremendous breakdown of the whole world of Toyu. In the four names of Hashem, there's the name Ma, Ban, Sag, and Ah, 45, 52, 63, 72. We're not going to get into the details, but it's four ways of writing out Hashem's name, which make up 45, 52, 63, 72. If you write out Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, you could write it out as Yud Vav Daled, Hey Aleph, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Aleph. That would be 45. There's another three ways of writing it out, which would make the other names Sag, Ban, and Av. In Kabbalah, the Shvira, the breaking, was in the name of Sag. Shem Sag, which is also in Hebrew, Sigim. Sigim are sediments. Kuloi Sag Yachdav, we say in Tehillim, right? It's all filthy and dirty. So that's the name Sag. It's also Gas. Gas means arrogance. So Hashvira Haisa B'Shem Sag. Mashengim B'Svira Sachachma Ksiv Yamusa V'Loi B'Chachma. The Shvira begins in Bina, not in Chachma. Why? Bina, Lagabe Chachma is enmeshment. Chachma is Kayach Ma Bittel. Bina is already understanding. It's a form of comprehending. Over there's already a Shvira. So it's interesting. Just like he spoke in Avodah, there's different levels of Medidav Hagbala. There's Medidav Hagbala in Torah, Avodah, there's Medidav Hagbala in Midas, there's Medidav Hagbala in Moichin, Medidav Hagbala in Rusa, the Libet all begins in Elikus. There's the way Medidav Hagbala is Mitzat Malchus. There's the way Medidav Hagbala is Mitzat Chsadim HaMechusim. There's the way Medidav Hagbala is Mitzat Bina. Bina is Tvuna. You're right. Legabe Midas, Bina, there's no Yenika. But Legabe Chachma, Bina is already formalizing godliness in a context of limitation. And b'meila, there could be a shvira there, there could be broken there. In chachma, yamusa v'loy b'chachma, in chachma there's no shvira. Because chachma is kayach ma. In chachma there's no ego, and therefore there's no shvira. Only the ego could be broken, because ego is ego. Just like he did in Avodah, he went through all the stages and showed that even in the highest places you could still be stuck in finiteness. So he's showing in the spheres you have the same thing. On one level it's Malchus, another level it's Zon, another level it's Bina, and then even Ru'usa de Libe Keser. Shebechitzoni is HaKeser av Shaliyas Yenika, Kamesha Kasav Smam is Biyadayim Titaf is Vibechle Melech. The Pasuk says, a spider can be grabbed with hands and it remains in the chamber of the king. Even in the chamber of the king, you can have somewhere a spider. Even Behechle Melech, which represents Keser, which represents the makif from the external element of the makif, there could be a nurture to chitzonim. When you speak about the makif, which is the infinity of God, the crown, from its external parts, the spider can be tolerated because the king is so aloof, he's not going to extricate the spider web, and therefore somehow they could live over there. They can find their way. Once there's pnimiyas hakasa, meaning in the deepest level of makav, there it's va'oyeves Yaakov esav sanesi. That's why it says Haman wanted to do goyralos. He wanted to go to a place of randomness, goyrel, and over there he could exterminate the Jewish people, because once you reach that place of makav, God doesn't have needs, God is perfect, He's infinite, good and evil, these are all definitions, and therefore he hoped that from there he could survive. The spider web could go in there. And he's right on a level of chitzoniyas hamakav, but not pnimiyas hamakav. Even though in Atzilus there's no evil, doesn't live with you. Even in Malchus of Atzilus it's all holy. On all these places there's nothing but holiness. Nonetheless, the Chitzonius HaKeser is a makav that's already relatable to the worlds. And even if you go deeper, pre-tzimtzum. Before the world was created, it was only him and his name. Even there, there's two levels. The way the Ur expands and the way the Ur is subsumed in the essence. Or to put it differently, an Ur that's shaykh to revelation, an Ur that's not shaykh to revelation, that's like the Ur inside of himself. So even pre-tzimtzum you have, so to speak. These 2 points, like we spoke in the Maamar before Shavuos, the kiv and shechitzainis hakesu ha'makav ha'shayich la'ilam is l'chein yashem shaychus l'chitzainis achas smam is biyadayim titapus. Since chitzainis hakes, even though it's higher than Atzilus, has a shaychus to the worlds, so therefore there's some connection to the external forces, to the point that the spider web gets away. The coals erak b'chitzainis hakesu lahavdil elef avdalis lein kates b'adam uchitzainis haratzin. Mashenkin b'pnimiyas hakeser shalamayla me'elamis lagamri ain't shum achizel l'chitzainim li'yosel lamayla lagamri ma'agbala da'elamis. If you speak lahavdil also in a person, when you're dealing with keser, chitzainis haratzin, a more external level of will, there could be ultimately a yenika l'chitzainim, the external forces could get nurture from it. But if you go into the pnimiyas hakeser, like we learned through Usa de Liba, the Yechida, not just makif of chayim, makif of yechida, bevua de bevua less, like we learned last class. There's no echo, there's no shadow of a shadow. It's completely beyond the world. In other words, it's a space of pure Ein Sof, so it's completely beyond the limitations of the Olamus. Over there, there's no achiza, there's no holding on l'chitzayna. What's the summation over here? I know that all the madregas are not so clear. The point is, everything we learned before, how in Avodah there's 2 different streams. In Avodah, there's 2 different streams, there's 2 different experiences. One within a finiteness and one within infinity, and he discussed it on many levels. He's showing here that it doesn't begin in the person. It begins in the spheres. It begins in the flow of godliness into the world. There's so many different ways of experiencing it, so many different streams, which are called the spheres. You have the way it's Malchus, and the way Zan, Bina, and Chasadim HaMechusim, Chasadim HaMegulim, and Bina, and Chachma, and Chitzonius HaKeser, and Pnimiyus HaKeser, and Pre-Tzimtzum, the Oire, the Etzim, and the Oire itself. And therefore, as a result of that, ultimately, it's manifested in 2 different experiences of life, and of Yiddishkeit and of Avodas Hashem. One is in which my Avodah is within finiteness. I only touch my own finiteness, and that's what I'm ready to hold on to, and that's what I know about, and that's where I operate from, and one in which I can let go of my finiteness and see myself as a manifestation of infinity and touch that level of reality and relate, and my avodah is from that space. So we have these two differences in the spheres. That was the addition of this sif, and he spoke how it exists on so many levels, just like we spoke in avodah that it exists on so many levels. So what's the conclusion of all of this? So now he goes weiter. He says, sif hey al pi ze muven sheklo listening in avodah tzarich lizbay from shalamaylim medidav hagbala. What's the conclusion of this? That the purpose of avodah is not to remain in a finite space, but to go into a place that's beyond your finiteness. V'hainu, what does this mean? What does this mean practically? Shagam ba'avodah shebahagbala tzarich liyas nirgish inyan shalamayla mehagbala. A person is not always living in infinity, but it means that even in my avodah, which is limited, because I'm a limited person, there could still be a connection. I could feel that it's rooted in something that's infinite. He gives a very interesting example. We have in Mishnayos and Ediyos something called Kulei Beis Shammai Chumrei Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai's leniencies, Beis Hillel's stringencies. Usually, throughout Mishnayos, Beis Shammai is stringent, Beis Hillel is lenient. That's the klal. And it says in Zohar, Beis Shammai came from Gvura, Beis Hillel came from Chesed. But there's a whole Mishnah, there's a whole section in Mishnayos and Maseches Ediyos that these are the leniencies of Beis Shammai. All the halachas in which Beis Shammai was actually lenient and Beis Hillel was stringent. Now, how does it come in here for? So he says this actually tells you that Beis Shammai wasn't stuck. He wasn't predictable. Usually you would think he's predictable. He's gvura, he's chesed, okay, he's nice guy, and he's the strict guy. He's always going to find no. And Beis Hillel will always say, yeah. You know, tati and mami, you always know who to go. You know, for the next trip, for the next tablet, you know who to go to. You know, mommy's weaknesses, you know, tati's weaknesses. You know, when the kids start pitting mommy against tati and tati against tati in their brilliant psychology and parents don't know what hit them. So it's predictable. So he says, the gam, kashem, mitzat sheresh, shmasi avidasi, kishitas beishamish avidasi, mibitzimtzum, bahatzna lechas. Even though mitzad is source of his neshama and his avodah, he's like Beis Shammai. What does it mean Beis Shammai? His avodah is betzimtzum. Things are more betzimtzum, bahatzna lechas, discreetness, modesty, it's all connected. Tzimtzum represents a fact that it's internal. It's not expansive and unlimited, and therefore also people don't see it. This is not stinginess. It's talking about holiness. Hatzna lechas means there's a discreetness, there's a modesty. Everything happens internal. And therefore the person also challenges themselves. Mikol makam tzarich liyas nirgish b'zein shalamayla me'agbala ideza shagam b'avodas Beis Shammai nirgish oifen avodah de Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai doesn't become disconnected from his umbilical cord. In his avodah there could be nirgish the oifen avodah of Beis Hillel. So there could be kulei Beis Shammai. So that the limitation doesn't become a trap, it becomes a channel. And that's a very big difference. If it's a trap, so this is where I am, and I can't go out of this. If it's a channel, it means you're manifesting infinity through your particular form. That's the idea that Beis Shammai you can't predict what he's going to hold. No. Now Beis Shammai is open to a new experience, where he's exactly like Beis Hillel. He changes his colors. Why? Because even when he doesn't change his colors, he's not defined, he's not stuck by it. This is his avodah, so he's manifesting it. But he's completely open to a different avodah, so that's why there's no judgmentalism. The Mishnah says that by Shammai and Beis Hillel, there's 300 arguments between them. That's recorded, but they didn't fight. They were at peace, they would marry each other's families, they would eat by each other's, even though they had serious debates in halacha. But they didn't delegitimize the person. How do you do that? How do you disagree without becoming disagreeable? How are you anchored in your own truth without becoming a judgmental person? It seems like a paradox. Non-judgmental people, I understand if you're spineless and you have no principles, right? And you believe in moral relativism and there's no good and evil, so you could be tolerant because you don't believe in anything. You don't even have to tolerate anything. It's not even called tolerance. It's chatchila nothing. Live and the only axiom is live and let live. Don't get under my skin, I don't get under your skin. And that's it. I don't even go to a deeper place. But if a person is living with a deep truth, so how could you liberate yourself from judgmentalism? This is the answer. When the Hagbala becomes, when God becomes defined in a certain limitation, it's very, very difficult. But when you always have that link to L'mayla Me'Hagbala means that even if I'm manifesting this, it doesn't become a prison. So therefore, Beis Shammai himself is very, very open. There's a fluidity, there's an openness. And therefore he can appreciate somebody who's very, very different. And not only that, sometimes even embrace it when Beis Shammai believes that this is the right thing now. I can even embrace Beis Hillel's perspective. That's the idea of Kulei Beis Shammai. That's how you know it's Kedusha. How do you know it's Kedusha? That the limit, the finiteness is linked to a place of infinity. In relationships, this is very powerful. Because it means, in a relationship, you can only give a person who you are. I can't be something else. I can only be who I am. And yet, when you're really, really anchored in who you truly are, you can actually be truly open also to another person's experience. You could be present. There's a flexibility, yeah. Not only that, there's also a confidence. It's not only there's a flexibility because you're not stuck, there's also a confidence that it's not going to threaten you.
Not afraid to lose your identity.
Yeah. When your identity is rooted in the L'mayla Me'Hagbala, so then it's not going to be lost. So you can really, really appreciate and hold space for something that's very, very different. It's fine. If myself I'm fragile, you trigger it, I go crazy. Stop triggering me. And that's what often happens. Like you have in relationships, when somebody's in, let's say, in a difficult space, if I'm anchored in myself and I'm confident, I could just be there. I can have compassion. I could listen. I could offer support in whatever way they need. But if that is triggering my own insecurity, or, like in a marriage, for example, if a husband needs his wife to always compliment him, always reassure him, right? And let's say she's in a bad mood, she's stressed. What happens? He can't be there anymore. So my confidence is very, very limited. And if you feed it, great. And if you don't feed it, I can't do it. It's like, oh my God. But if you're rooted in something that's deeper, so you're good, you're present. I know who I am. Now I know who I am. I could just be there for the other person. Right. Understand? It's very, very, in life, we see the difference. It's very, very powerful difference. Huh? What does YouTube say? They disagree?
It was about your lecture.
Oh. If we go now back to the person's avoid, Maise, Dibur, Machshava, actions, words, and thoughts. Gemilas Chasadim, Avoid, Torah, all ought to be in a way that goes beyond the person's limitations. Take kindness or tzedakah. We learned in halacha, you come first. Even your own Rebbe, your own father, they lose something. Your own Aveda, we learned before from Baba Mitzvah, Aveda Vedasei Kaidemes. It says, Efes Kalayih B'cha Evya, and make sure that you're the one who's not poor first, and then you'll worry about others. But sometimes, the Rebbe said, it can take you into a mindset of scarcity. It's always me versus others. We go now back to the Rebbe says, when you realize that tzedakah actually saves your soul, pada b'shalom nafshi, so a person could go to a place of unlimitedness. Not a mindset of scarcity, but a mindset of real sharing, real generosity. Not because they don't care about themselves, because they're hefker, they're frivolous, they couldn't care less, or they're just like careless and apathetic, or because they want to show off. No, it comes from a mindset of l'mayla me'hagbala. Somebody that doesn't have a scarcity mindset, they have a very, very expansive mindset. So it's pada b'shalom nafshi. It's like, what do you do to save your soul? You'll do anything to save your soul. The same is true with davening. He spoke before, people who daven like to pay up a debt. It's a checklist. I did it, boom. And there's fixed times. That's medid of hagbala. And then he says a different way of davening. You're davening for your soul, for heaven's sake. And when it's negayah for your soul, there's no measurement. It says, whatever a person has, they give for their soul. What's the price? What's the price for your life? What's the price for your soul? What's the price for your child's life? It's not that there's no times for davening. There are times for davening. Like he said before, there's shachas, there's mincha ma'ariv. But the person goes into a space in which the medida, the hagbala, doesn't define them. They're tuning into a different experience. K'maykim b'Torah. שצריך לסבוין שהתורה היא רפואה וסם חיים, בפרט שהתורה מצא לזה מקום המסה כמים ברוסי, יצא שמקום המסה ברוסי לתורה תבלין, וידי הסברים לזו נעשה לימודי בתורה לא יגבל. The same is true in Torah. Of course you could be yotze, you could find Hatarim. I learn a chapter in the morning, a chapter in the evening. When a person realizes this is oxygen, this is sam chayim, this is life, so then who wants measurements? It's like I'm going to breathe only for the next 30 seconds, then I'm not going to breathe. And then 5 minutes later when I'm half dead, I'll breathe again. When a person realizes, like the Gemara says, I created the Yetzer Hara, which is a place of death, and I created Torah as a spice, as a medicine, so then it's the natural thing. It's without limitations. On the contrary, whenever you can have a moment of it, you want more and more and more and more and more of it. You're not looking at a checklist to get away with it. Rather, you're in tune with something that's Lamayla Magbala. The same is true with love and awe. See, now he's going through all the levels that he spoke in the beginning of the Maamar, from a limited perspective, and he's going in how you could go to an unlimited perspective. Your feeling of love is not only because it's good for me, but because it's essentially good. Yeah, like we spoke in relationships. I love you as long as you benefit me, you enhance me, I enjoy it, and yeah, I'm very excited about it. But tomorrow something else excites me, and it's much more powerful. This happens constantly. So as long as you excite me, I'm in. The moment something else excites me more powerful, that's where they're there. Why? Because the ava lechatchila was very, very limited. It was defined from my own place of ego. I didn't really touch your heart. I didn't really feel you. I don't even know what that means. It's very, very hard to experience another person. To experience another person's heartbeat, you have to go outside of your Hagbala. And it's very scary. It's really, really letting go. Love is letting go. And if I don't want to let go, my love is going to be transactional. And this is a very, very common theme, you know.
All these examples they gave us to go out of these would also for the benefit of himself.
Of course, it's the biggest benefit of a person. It's getting in touch with your own real energy. Because a person is not really finite. The soul is infinite. So when a person is in a finiteness, I'm actually creating a wall, and I'm not in touch with my energy. It's like I pull out the plug. That's what he's saying. The point is not to be infinite. We live in a finite world, but to be connected to your infinity. Beis Shammai has a way of looking at things. But he wasn't locked. He wasn't afraid of Beis Hillel. And Beis Hillel wasn't afraid of Beis Shammai. In fact, throughout Mishnayos, you see, whenever there's a machlokes, who's quoted first? You remember? Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Who wrote the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who came from Hillel. Shouldn't have he said his opinion first? First you say Beis Hillel, then you say Beis Shammai. So the Gemara says in Erev in Taka, why is the halacha like Beis Hillel? Because they were very, very noichen v'aluvin, they were very pleasant, and they always quoted Beis Shammai before they quoted themselves. So you see in the whole Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi is always quoting Beis Shammai before he quotes his own Zayda. Why? On the contrary, because that's when you can actually trust the opinion. I can quote Beis Shammai first. It doesn't mean I agree with Beis Shammai. I don't agree with Beis Shammai. I argue with Beis Shammai and I'll fight for it. But I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of Beis Shammai. Why? Whenever you're plugged in to a place of Lamayla Hagbala, your limits are not a trap or a prison, they're a channel. And whenever you're a channel, you can always go back to the source that's undefined and find common ground. You get what I'm saying? So you're fully present where you are, but you're also connected to a source in which there's common ground. Ayin. That's the idea. So on all levels, you have this. In Avodas Hashem, on every level, there could be B'Hagbala, Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chsadim. My tzedakah is very, very fixed, extremely fixed. I do the right thing. I have a checklist. I gave the tzedakah, I gave Maisa, whatever it is, but not a penny more. And then there's a different mindset of tzedakah. Koila shalish. Says the Baal Shem Tov wouldn't go to sleep at night, if he had money in the house. He couldn't sleep. So people think, how did he have Menuchas HaNefesh? The answer is, he's the only one who had Menuchas HaNefesh. He actually had so much Menuchas HaNefesh because he was completely in flow. Like, God wasn't an abstract thing. Like the Baal Shem Tov knew if there's money in the house at night, there's something off. I'm not alive. It's like interrupting the oxygen. It's a Baal Shem Tov, I understand. But it teaches us something. It teaches us something. The Baal Shem Tov had much more Menuchas HaNefesh because he had no anxiety. Because he really knew, I'm living in a flow, completely. Einaid Malvade, the money God wants me to have, I have. If there's extra money at night, I actually can go to sleep. There's something off. He gave it away. Okay, now I can have a normal sleep. He had much more Menuchas HaNefesh. Right, that's why he gave it. He couldn't sleep. There was something disturbing him. That's what it means to be fully in flow. Fully, like it was no game. It's not a game. It's 24/7, mamish kipshutai. You have to be in touch with your own infinity. Yeah.
How does this translate itself into personal relationships? A husband and a wife. How does one train oneself to see the mila of what I don't have?
How it translates into personal relationships, I think this is at the core of personal relationships. There can be two types of personal relationships. One is I relate to another person, but I'm afraid. I'm ultimately afraid. What do I mean? What do I mean? I'm afraid. It's conditional. It's conditional that they make me feel good. And if they're not making me feel good, it interrupts the relationship. So it's a very fragile relationship. Like I said before, sometimes in a marriage, right, a husband or a wife, they could be fully emotionally present if the other person is in a good mood. The other person is in a good mood. I mean, husbands know about this a lot. If the other person is in a good mood, your wife is inspired, you come home, she tells you how handsome you are, how brilliant you are, how amazing you are, how she's the luckiest person in the world to be married to a guy like you, and then you're flying high and you give love ad infinitum, okay? Begashmias, beruchnias. And the same is true with your kids, right? You come home and your kids kiss you, which means till they're like, teenagers, and you're like the greatest gift to humanity, and it's a schus for them to be with Tati for another 5 minutes, and you are the most loving, amazing father in the world. The only problem is that at some point they hit the age called 14, 15, 16, and now being with Tati is like the most embarrassing, stupid, humiliating, ludicrous, immature, weird thing in the world, right? They're not 6 years old anymore. This is where, as we say in English, you got to become a man. You got to become a superior man. What do we mean? What does it mean you become a man? What does that mean? What does that look like? In Isis of Chassidus, it means you go to a place that's beyond Hagbala. In simple words, like everything, it exists on many levels, but the point is, if I am in a very, very finite space, practically means I'm not anchored in my own infinity. Yeah, I need you to tell me that I'm a good guy. I need you to tell me that I'm a great guy. I need you to tell me that I'm doing well. I don't know myself. I'm not in touch with my own life force and energy. And if you cannot do that for me, I can't be here for you anymore. And therefore tomorrow I look for something that's more exciting. And that's what people are doing all the time. Even if they're loyal in their marriage, they can't be present in their marriage. They need distractions because the distractions are giving them the feedback they want, and the marriage is not. So I'm not talking about people who the next day run to other women. We know that also. But even people who don't, they're moral, right? But the phone is a woman also. And the phone doesn't make conditions, doesn't get into a bad mood. Sometimes it just, dies, but you put in the plug, boom. With your wife, it's not so easy, just put in the plug. To find a charger is not so pashut in marriage. So what's the eitzah for this? The eitzah for this is we blame the other. Well, you're not this, you're not this, you're not this. And there may be some truth to that, but the real thing is I have to go internally. How needy am I? Do you know how to feed yourself? Do you know how to find your own life force and energy? Can you plug in your own plug and be alive? So now when it comes to your child, yes, your teenager may be struggling, or may think he's struggling, or may just be a good teenager with an attitude. But you could be present. You don't fall apart because your son didn't give you a compliment. You don't fall apart. You don't need your child to be your best friend. You need a friend, go find yourself a friend. You don't need compliments from your child. Your child needs you to be their best friend because they're vulnerable. You don't need your child to be your best friend. That's not what parents need. You don't need that. Go find a best friend for yourself. Yeah, go pay money and find yourself a friend. They call it a therapist in America.
I'm accepting it.
Go buy. It says in your Shainim, buy. Don't your child's responsibility. They have enough. They don't need the responsibility of being my father's and mother's friend. It's not their job. But I could only show up in that sense if I am rooted and anchored in a very, very deep space of confidence, which comes from a source that's infinite, which is not going to change because your spouse or your child is having a difficult day. Yeah, your spouse is having a difficult time. So could you show up? Could you just hold space, be present with an open heart, and you don't have to run away, close your heart, and like, I can't deal with this, become normal, and then I'll come back. In the meantime, I'm going to go on my phone, which is going to give me the attention I need for the next hour so I could feel good about myself. And people could live their entire life in this orbit, in this space. And what is it rooted in? It's rooted in that I'm only in touch with my own finiteness. You're not in touch with yourself. You think it's about the other person. It's nothing to do with the other person. I am in a prison. I don't know myself. When you are, there's nothing like being connected to your own life force and energy. There will be nobody in the world that will substitute your own life force and energy. Nobody. Because your own life force and energy, that's God. That's the God inside of you. If you have that, you have everything. If you don't have that, you got nothing. You're a bottomless pit. It's a cup with a hole. I could pour, your wife and kids could pour like this. I got a tub. Goes right out. Give me more. You typhus what I'm saying? Rabbi Pharaoh. Makes a little sense.
People afraid of the dark because they only with themselves. Nobody around them.
Yeah, it's much easier for me to put the blame on you. And it doesn't mean the other person is perfect. The other person needs to do their work. Doesn't mean the other person is perfect. Doesn't mean my wife is perfect, my children are perfect. What it means is that my deepest challenge is to find my own light. And the more you do that, the more you'll actually be able to see the other person, and they will be able also to see themselves much better. It's going to help them also.
Shammai didn't just agree with Hillel, it was Kulei Shammai.
Kulei Beishamai. Yeah.
It's like, on this they agree.
Right.
His own Kulei.
Yeah.
No, but there were a few things that they agreed to. For example, you need to like.
And there were things that and there were things that were chumrei Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel was machmer. There was an unpredictability there. Why? Because Beis Shammai was rooted. That's the vort. Even if you're an Hagbala, but you're connected to something l'mayla Hagbala.
What about the infamous part where Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were in disagreement to the point of physical violence in the Talmud states?
Yeah.
What about sloop? Huh? No, there's followers of this. Yeah, obviously not the two rebels. Yes, understand. I mean, there's the machlokes and Babylon.
Yeah, that can happen. That can happen when we become disconnected from the Mailam Hagbala. So that's what he's saying about Ava and Yira. The Ava is not because it's good for me, because I see your soul. The moment you could see somebody else's real goodness, that remains. That's the key. If the beauty of my child is that they're giving me nachas, or the beauty of my wife is that she's complimenting me and satisfying a certain need, etc., or many needs, it's a very, very external space. In myself, it's an external space. I'm not seeing you. I'm seeing me. I'm seeing you as part of me, as feeding me. He says, Ava v'yira means that the dzach is toiv be'etzem. Can you see their goodness? Because that's not going to change. Can you really see their soul? Can you appreciate it? Can you value it? And the truth is, how can I see somebody else if I never saw myself? I can't. If I never saw myself, I can't see you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where to look. I don't even know how to look. I don't have those glasses. I only know how to see things in a way that benefit me. Because I don't even know myself. I just know what feels good at the moment. Kamoicha, exactly. You'll only love somebody else as much as you love yourself. Ahavta l'recha kamoicha. And it's a very deep thing. This is not conscious. What does it mean to really see the goodness of the other person? To really see it. To know it. To touch it. Now they may be having a difficult day. So what does that do? It triggers compassion, not anger. Your heart stays open. It doesn't close up. Oh, you're having a bad day. Boom, I'm out. I'm going to China for a week. Emotionally, I'm in China. That's it. When you sober up, you become normal. You become a normal person. You mature. Call me. I'll come back from China. Maybe. I have to see what's in China. Sometimes there's exciting stuff over there these days. You have to see the tariff you're going to charge to come back. May not be worth it. But you tell me what I'm saying. Why can't I stay with an open heart? Because you just triggered the living daylights out of me. Why'd you trigger the living daylights out of me? Because my emotional energy was very frail. In the language of Chassidus, it was b'medidah v'hagabala. I was in a very, very limited space. I'm like a baby. And if I'm a baby, that's fine, but I should just acknowledge it. You're allowed to be a baby, but just don't make believe you're the adult. I'm a baby, yeah, and I'm very vulnerable, and we have that part of us. So that's the pshat ava v'yira. There could be ava because it's good for me, and ava because it's toiv be'etzem. Once it's toiv be'etzem, so now the person is in pain, the person is going through something, the person needs help, whatever it is. So you could be there. It's not so easy, this, right? You understand what I'm saying? In a moment of truth, this is not so easy because people fall in to their wound itself, which is a mugbaldik self. Hagbala, all wounds create hagbala. Because what a wound does is, it says, this is not a safe place, so let me go behind the wall. That's what it does. Whenever I'm living behind a wall, because I'm afraid, that means I'm living in a finite mindset. I have no choice. In my mind, I have no choice. If I come out of that, I can be shot. I can be killed emotionally. How do I know? Because when I was 4 years old, I did come out of it. And I was hurt. So I go behind a wall. I have a big wall. And I'll only peek out when it's safe. And that wall says, okay, if somebody is going to compliment me, somebody's going to tell me, Rabbi, why the shiur was excellent, good. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. Baruch Hashem, I can come out of behind the wall. And if it's going to be the opposite, it's very, very dangerous. And we all have this, and every person in their own life. So I never come out from behind that wall.
Especially when people criticize you.
Yeah. If a person grew up with crazy criticism, it becomes very, very difficult. I need to avoid that. I need to avoid that like you avoid the demon. If I really feel I'm not good enough, I really feel I'm undeserving, I really feel inner shame, and this is a very common thing. It's just going to be perpetuated constantly. And now somebody close to you criticizes you, of course you close your heart. They just told you there's a lion in the room, you're not safe. Here again, I feel like a shmata unworthy. What do I need to be in a relationship with somebody who's reminding me how unworthy I am? My phone doesn't do that. That's why people love being on their phone. You talk to everybody's on their phone. Why? Because my phone doesn't tell me I'm unworthy. My phone actually thinks I'm a good guy. It feeds me things that I like. It sends me nice clips of Rabbi YY, whatever it is, good clips, exciting clips, this clip, that clip. It sends me a joke. If I don't like clean jokes, it does that. Whatever if I like clean jokes, whatever you want, it feeds you, it feeds your confidence, it boosts your ego, and it says I'm a good guy. Now you're dealing with a real person, suddenly I'm feeling undeserving. Why should I even stay here for another minute? So maybe I'll stay here because I'm a good father, but I can't really be here. What is this all based on? This is all based on I'm living behind a wall, I'm living under a rock.
And the AI now can be such a good
AI, yeah.
phenomenon.
So what's the nakuda in all of this? The nakuda here is, it takes a it takes the courage of a person to be able to find their own space that's l'mayla mehagbala. There's no such a thing you're undeserving. You just don't know yourself. If you're rooted in infinity like everybody is, you're chelik elokami mal mamish, so then you're not rooted in limitedness. So you're not frail. But to be able to breathe into this, to be able to live this, to be able to embody this, is very, very profound work. So that's an example of Ava V'yira, where it's not, I love you because of how you make me feel, which then tomorrow can be easily overturned and upended, but rather, I see the person, you really see the person. And that's going to be there tomorrow, even if they're exhausted, or they're overwhelmed, or they're having their own challenges and struggles. It stays there. Now he says a very interesting word. Psychologically, it's very, very powerful. Listen to this. What if you're in a space of mind where that's it's only available for you? That this thing is good for me. I don't have anything else. Yeah, that's where I am. Mashenken kshiyedeh b'pnimiyus al kolponim. Sha'adavar u'toiv be'etzem, azay ein achize ba'ava shetiyeh gam binyanei olam, ki davar kazeh u'toiv be'etzem yashnei rak belikus. Even if a person is in a state where I don't feel this part of me yet, all I could feel is I love you because you make me feel very good. He says that's fine. But b'pnimiyus, you should know that the ikir is not that it makes you feel good. The ikar is that it's good. It's good essentially. Because when you know that, ultimately you won't be hijacked by other loves. If it becomes all about my experience, tomorrow there'll be a much better experience. And I'll just throw you under the bus. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. My heart closes. Next. Why? Because I'm living in a very, very confined space. When you know at least b'pnimis, right now, yeah, I'm in this space that I'm experiencing how good it is for me. I'm not in a place of bittul. But nonetheless, you know, but b'pnimius, the power is that it's something that's good be'etzem. So now tomorrow you won't be hijacked, even when this relationship is not as exciting as it was yesterday. If the ava is only because it's good for me, then you can lose that ava. And he says, this is the nekudah in avodas Hashem. If God is how it makes me feel, making me feel good, so then tomorrow there's other things that make me feel much better than God. Because God, even when he was here, was just a distraction. It was just a way of soothing my wound. If you know at least b'pnimius, yeah, it's about my excitement, but b'pnimius, it's toiv be'etzem, then you won't be hijacked tomorrow by an avazar, you won't fall. Why? So this is the vart. The olam haza, klippa won't be able to chap you. Ki davar kazeshu toiv be'etzem yeshnei rak belikus. This is the whole chassidus in one line. Huh? Yeah. This inyan that something is toiv be'etzem, it's essentially good forever and ever, is only godliness. There's nothing else in the world like that. Either it's a continuum of godliness and it's toiv, or it's a distraction of godliness and then it's not toiv be'etzem. It just feels good at the moment. And this is a rule for eternity. This rule never changed. This rule will never change. This is what it means, Einoid Mulvada. There's only one real source of life and goodness and bliss. And that's truth, infinite truth. Elokus, godliness. He's the source of everything. Hashem is the source of everything. Either you're in touch with that and you're pursuing that, you're pursuing life, you're pursuing goodness. It could be through eating, it could be through exercise, it could be even through making money, it could be in a moment of intimacy. Of course, it could be in learning Torah, davening, mitzvah, tzedakah, whatever it is. But you're not distracting yourself from that. You're going there. That's toiv be'etzem. Now, does it mean right now I'm in a place where all I am is just I'm a channel for goodness? No, I may be in a place where I'm looking what it's doing for me. It's geschmack. Yes, it's geschmack. It's geschmack. Fine. But just know that b'pnimiyus it's toiv be'etzem. Because then tomorrow you'll have that anchor. If not, if it's just about me, so then tomorrow is under for me. And the reason is because I'm myself in a very, very frail place. I'm not in touch with my own elikus. So here is a vart. When you know that b'pnimiyus, it's toiv be'etzem, even though right now my experience is that it's toiv li, this is the guarantee that it's eternal. Because you'll never find that in anything else in the world. There's nothing in the world that could claim, I'm toiv be'etzem. All they can say is, I'll make you feel good for 10 minutes. That's what they'll all do. And they do it. And they take a lot of money for it. That's their power. That's their only power. And nobody can invent anything that's a substitute for this. It's frustrating for Klippa. It's frustrating. That's why it's so desperate. It's always desperate because it doesn't have its own oxygen. It always has to make believe. It's always investing more money in a Ponzi scheme because it doesn't have its own life.
What is like a muscle you can train that somebody is at some good. So to the point there, even if you maybe don't address it from that Atzmis point of view, it's still like a muscle you train.
Ein chanam. So this is a nakud. You always need to be connected to this nakud hapnimis, and it's so true in relationships. A person may acknowledge that I'm in a relationship, and right now it's a painful moment because the person can't be here for me. Okay. Yeah, it's hard. It was so beautiful last week when there was flow. Now there's no flow. Okay. I can acknowledge that. It's a part of me that wants to experience this joy. But I'm not running anywhere. Don't run anywhere. Why not? Why aren't you running anywhere? Because you know, b'pnimiyus, that there's a toiv be'etzem here. There's something here. You know the value of it. You know the goodness of it. And you're not going to get that somewhere else. You could run and be satisfied for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in any way you know how to be satisfied, through food, through alcohol, through your computer, through gambling, through this, relate that, whatever it is. We don't have to get graphic and specific. Everybody knows about their distractions. What they're going to compete with is only feel good. That's it. They won't compete with toiv be'etzem. Toiv be'etzem means that you come back to it from 1,000 angles after 1,000 years. It's still going to be good. It's only going to be the only source of good. And look in life. Think about anything you're pursuing that's not a lakus. And you'll see its power is that it's making me feel good. That's what it does. In other words, it's distracting me from my misery. That's what it does. And there are a lot of distractions in this world. Some are benign, some are heinous, some are moral, some are immoral. Some seem moral, but they're not moral. Whatever it is, some people do it in a functional way, some people do it in a dysfunctional way. But the common denominator of all of it is either I'm pursuing real reality, I'm getting closer to real reality, which means I'm getting closer to my own real reality, which is pursuing real reality, or I'm distracting myself from my real reality through things that are not real reality, and that's where I find some satisfaction. It's all substitutions, and they're very powerful. They're very, very powerful substitutions. And it could even be a meal, it could be a breakfast, but it's a distraction. Right now, this food is the most amazing thing in the life, because if I take a bite of this piece of cake or this thing, I'm going to be in heavens. For how long? Till I have to go to the bathroom. Usually 20 minutes. And the same is true with conversations. Right? This conversation, this relationship, it's going to give me something. It's going to what is it going to satisfy? It's going to satisfy the need that I feel right now that this conversation is going to be very exciting for me. Always. Yeah. Yeah. The Chevra Atoifis Dinyan here. Huh? This is serious stuff. This is not baby food. Huh? It's life and death. Yeah.
What attracts you to the Torah Be'etzem? Only because it's for me. So I'm still the same position.
What attracts you to the Toiv Be'etzem is that you're Toiv Be'etzem. What attracts you to the Toiv Be'etzem is that you're Toiv Be'etzem.
Why it's attractive, but
That's the word. The more you're in touch with your own essential goodness that you are deserving, the more you will see that. You'll see that in others. Always. The more you're in touch with your own infinity, you'll see the infinity in others. And then it's in a different space. And the point here is that it doesn't mean I'm always in a space of infinity. I'm just like, this selfless channel. Even when I'm in a place where what's relevant to me is that you're making me excited. But nonetheless, I know that b'pnimiyus, the power is that it's essentially exciting. It's essentially good. Knowing in a way that it's real. Knowing in a way that it's real. Knowing like always, das, right? Yeah. No matter what the weather is, this is my planet. Mars has not invited me yet. This is my planet. This is my relationship. This is it. It's a heartbeat experience. It's not an intellectual experience. This is a very, very internal space of silence, by the way. I'm talking about it like we always talk about things because we're not yet good at silence. We're going to get there, Be'ezer Hashem, one day. We'll just sit down and be quiet.
Can you describe it in one word as a mirror?
A mirror? Very much. Yeah, like the Baal Shem Tov says, everything is a mirror. But it's a very, very deep, a very silent experience. And if you're not understanding any of this, it's also fine because there's a lot of distractions to experience this. Ego, but ego today in 2025 is not what it looks like. Was not what it looked like in other times. Ego today is distractions. Ego today is anxiety. Ego today is fear. Ego today is I'm so undeserving. Ego today is I'm not capable of having real relationships. That's ego. It's not the ego that I'm above everything. It's the ego that I'm below everything. That's the biggest ego. The ego today doesn't look very exciting. The ego today looks like a lot of bittul, but it's ego. Yeah. Like we once said in a shir, the feeling that you're above people and the feeling that you're inferior to people, it's the same ego. It's Maamar, the same ego. The feeling that my life, I'm so much better than everybody, and my life is cursed, and I'm just a curse, and I'm just a shmata. It's exactly the same ego. Both tell you that you're not one with Hashem. So I'm not one with Hashem. I'm superior, and I'm not one with Hashem. Look, I'm so weird and dysfunctional, and I'm such a loser. And look at my life, and look at the mistakes I made. Both are saying the same thing. You're not one with Hashem yet. One says it through I, and one says it through not I. Same thing. I, not I. I, no, kill the I. Whoa. Don't kill him. He's fine. Don't make him into a god. He's part of Hashem. That's it. The ego doesn't like those words. You're just part of God. No, I'm not. Either I'm a piece of shame and garbage, or I'm a piece of, amazing. But it's both the same thing. It used to be the ego was one way, today it's the other way, but it's the same nakuda. Why oiveh? Every human, this is true about every person is created b'tzelem Elokim, in the image of God. So when we reflect the image of God in us, this is it. Yeah, the Jewish soul has its unique properties called chelik halakami mal mamish, but the concept exists in the whole world.
Why Adam was created as a single human being. Everyone should know they all have the same.
Yeah. The Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, lefichach nivra adam yechidi. So nobody should tell anybody else that I'm superior to you. Because everybody comes from Adam, and Adam was created as one person. Well, that's the job of the Jewish people. That's what we were chosen for, to teach this to the world.
They don't listen.
Huh?
They don't listen.
That's why you have to use F-16s against Iran, yeah. This is a struggle of humanity. The struggle of humanity is the Klippa wants to hijack reality. Somebody once said, I actually heard this from a non-Jew, a non-Jewish woman, very, very deep. She lives in England. And she once said something very powerful. She said, what's anti-Semitism? She said, anti-Semitism is basically Jews hold up to the world a mirror. And the mirror is that the only thing that's toiv be'etzem is elikus. These words, that's the mirror. Einoid mulvade, it's the frequency of oneness. Anything outside of the frequency of oneness is fake news. That's the mirror of the Jews, and they show it to everybody. Consciously, unconsciously, Jews who know what they're doing do it consciously. Jews who don't know what they're doing do it unconsciously. But every Jew does this. They don't even know that they're doing it. From Maamar Har Sinai, when God said, Ata v'chartana mikol ha'amim, from that day, Jews are with a mirror like this. They could call it whatever they want, but that's what they're doing. They're holding up this mirror to the entire world to look at themselves and say, anything that's not toiv be'etzem, anything that's not a likus is not toiv be'etzem. And that's not easy to live with. Really? That's not easy to live with. That requires complete surrender. Wow, that's like, oh my God. And therefore, all anti-Semitism is trying to knock down the mirror. You know, when you look at a mirror and you see something ugly, what do? Break the mirror. You don't want to go change. You don't want to get a nose job and a face job. It's too expensive. So break the mirror. You won't see it. It's all anti-Semitism. Break the mirror, break the mirror, break the mirror. And then, of course, you break the mirror, but the person is still there and you guys another. So break the person, crush the person. And in some ways, they're successful. This Jew gets killed, this Jew gets destroyed, this community, this Holocaust, this pogrom, this inquisition, this persecution, this expulsion. It's all the same thing. All the way from the beginning, from Nimrod against Avram Avinu, all the way Hitler, Stalin, and today the Islamists, Yemach Shemam v'zichram. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all of them and all their support. It's the same Nekuda. It just manifests itself different ways. And they're knocking down, and they're looking for success, and logically they should have success. You're talking about a couple of million Jews. Just get rid of them and we're good. We'll be able to be in a free world. But they keep on coming back up, right? They keep on coming back. And the reason they keep on coming back up, because you can't destroy the frequency of oneness. Like, how do you do that? How do you destroy Toiv Be'etzem? Like, you can't destroy it. You can't destroy a Lakus. So it keeps on coming back up, back. And they push. And the Jews are still here. 5,000 years later, the same Meshagoyim are still here. Nobody knows how and why and what they're doing and why everybody's obsessed with them, but everybody knows that everybody's obsessed with them. They're not even a match on a football field. It's not even the size of Israel is the size of New Jersey or Dallas International Airport. Iran is more than 1,000 miles away, right? Literally has no connection. They don't have to look that way. They're shaykh to Israel like I'm shaykh to New Zealand. Completely not connected, but something obsessive about them, that they have to destroy them. And the Jews just come back. And then she said, what's Mashiach? What's Pshat Mashiach? Mashiach is all the nations are going to look and say, okay, we surrender. That's it. Okay, we surrender. That's it. We surrender. That's it. Boom. That's it. That's Geula. That's redemption. You see what you really are. The moment you stop fighting what you really are, you're in bliss. But that's why Mashiach doesn't begin with the non-Jews. It begins with the Jews. Even New York Times and CNN. They're Jews. They're Jews. Because when Jews are fighting the mirror, it's the hardest thing. Because they're fighting themselves in the most internal space, right? That's why the worst are the Israelis themselves who hate themselves. Because you're like destroying yourself. It's like a cancer within. You're eating up all your healthy cells. But then you surrender, and then it's actually, what was I fighting? Why was I fighting this? I was fighting myself. That's the paradox. The paradox is, this is the most blissful experience, because when you say Toiv Be'etzem is a Lakus, it means you. It means that's who you are. So what were you fighting? You were fighting a distraction that was taking you away from you. The klipa tells you that you're not a likus, so you're busy satisfying something that you're not, and therefore it never satisfies you, so you always need more. To crack that open and say, no, you don't know who you are. You don't need any of this. You're actually so much more powerful. You can be in flow. You're actually divine. You don't need to exist. You're not looking for that. You were never looking for that. You're just channeling transcendence through existence. You don't need existence. You're much greater than existence. But I understand it's hard for Klipa to hear this. You're greater than existence? So let's stay in existence and we'll be in control. What we need to convey to ourselves is, and this is maybe the hardest and the deepest experience, is our greatest tragedy is the lack of real self-respect. That's what it's all about. The lack of real self-respect. We always understand religion and Yiddishkeit as taking away self-respect. Like, respect God, stop respecting yourself. Respect your elders, respect your parents. We don't understand that the deepest expression here is the expression of self-respect. What does self-respect mean? Self-respect doesn't mean I'm wearing a tie and I won't walk out without a tie, and I'm going to make sure that I look perfect and I have the most expensive watch in the world so people could look at me and say, "Says a fine schmecker." And when you look at my car, you're like, wow, that's not self-respect. That's usually the opposite of it. Self-respect means this in Nekuda. You can really, really respect and cherish the fact that your heartbeat is the divine heartbeat in life. You're a conduit. In other words, you're infinite. You manifest infinity in this world. Your love is infinite. Your awe is infinite. And every moment of life, even a finite moment, is a manifestation of infinity. And therefore, the only thing you really want to pursue is who you really are and what you're really connected to, and the only real essence of reality. That's what you want to do. You don't want to pursue anything else. I don't have time to distract myself with things that are fake. Sorry. Don't come to me and sit for the next 45 minutes and share with me lies. I respect myself too much for that. Just like I'm not going to take a piece of food that's going to bring poison into my body. I like myself too much. In many ways, it's maybe a funny thing of saying, it's the ultimate self-love. People don't realize this. What does self-love mean? Self-love means that you actually love yourself. So you take care of you, respect yourself. Yeah, I'm not going to take into my body something that's going to destroy me. No, I like myself. I like my life. I like my energy. I like my body. I'm not going to take a pill that's going to put me to sleep for 3 years. I don't want to do that. I want to be awake. I want to live. Why would I go into a conversation right now with somebody for the next 45 minutes that's going to be gossip or slander or talk about stupidity or futility or fakeness? I respect my energy too much. If you're channeling God's energy into the world, respect it, for heaven's sake. Pun intended, for heaven's sake. Literally, for heaven's sake, yeah. You're not made of hell, you're made of heaven. So why should you voluntarily yourself put into purgatory? Now, I may not be in that space. I may be in a different space. I may be in a more vulnerable, fragile, animalistic space. Okay, that's part of the mission. But the knowledge, the acknowledgement that it's toiv be'etzem. Elikus is not just it's feeding you at the moment, it's feeding your ego. It's toiv be'etzem allows you that even if at the moment I'm still in an ego space, but tomorrow I'm not going to be hijacked by something else. It's such a reiche word. When you know that b'pnimius, it's toiv be'etzem, even though now all you're in touch with is that you're making me feel good, you're good. Because you know that be'etzem, that's the power here. You could, there's something, and tomorrow you could trust, and therefore you could trust yourself. You're not going to be hijacked by an avazara, because that's not going to give it to you. But if you're only in touch with the fact that it's making me feel good, that's it. You don't even know that it's toiv be'etzem. You're not in touch with that. Now you're just so vulnerable. And you see it in relationships between people. The moment a husband really sees his wife, the moment a wife really sees her husband, checkmate for this relationship. They're good to go. They can deal with any up and down, all ups and downs. The challenge is they never saw each other. He never saw her. She never saw him. I don't mean physically. I mean, of course, they saw each other, but I mean saw the other person. All I saw was, and I can't see anybody else if I never saw myself. All I saw my wife was what she does to me, in the positive or the negative, that's it. Because when you never saw yourself, you only see people through the lens of yourself. You don't have a choice. All I know is you make me feel good, you don't make me feel good. And that's why I like you, I don't like you. I never saw you. Because to see the other, you have to be free, you have to be relaxed. You have to let go. Wow, see you. I can't. I'm like this. I'm behind the wall, so I just have to see you. I'm dodging you. You get it? The moment you see the moment you see your children for real, you're good. The moment you see your spouse, you're good. There could be ups and downs. You have to work it through, but you're good. Okay. Everybody have a beautiful, inspiring, and meaningful day. Tomorrow morning we have a women's class. Tomorrow night I'm traveling to Brazil. I have a nephew's wedding, Be'ezer Hashem. If I get my visa approved today or tomorrow. So I'm going to be away Thursday and Monday. But we'll be back here next Tuesday. No, I'm going to be somewhere else for Shabbos.
You're not here for Shabbos?
No. We missed you, right? Oh, no.
You missed me. You missed me this Shabbos. But I didn't miss you.
Tomorrow morning we have a women's class, so I won't be able to continue.
We were talking about you this Shabbos, so we didn't.
Did you say nice things, I hope?
Yeah.
It's time for Skivan.
When's the next year?
Yesh Misha Oyev. Same Nekuda. Same Nekuda. If it's Yesh Misha Oyev, it goes to Klippa. If it's Mitzad Ayin, then there could be a Yesh also. The Nekuda Pnimis is Ayin. If the Nekuda Pnimis is Ayin, then you're good. Because even in the Yesh, you have an anchor. If the Nekuda Pnimis is Yesh, then tomorrow there's another Yesh. It's vulnerable, it's fragile. But this line of the Maamar, Ki davar kazeshu toiv be'etzem yeshnei rak b'elikus. You're not going to find it anywhere.
The line of the whole
In other words, once you know that, you could run, go wherever you want. You could go to the mountains, go to Mars.
Come back to this point.
The toiv be'etzem is only in elikus. Because everything was created from elikus. So either it's reflecting elikus, and then it's reflecting the emes, or it's being mailam on elikus.
You have to know that you're part of it.
Of course.
That's the whole. That's the premise. You know you're part of it.
K'shidei b'pnimiyus al kol panim, because b'chitzayni is he's feeling only himself, that you're giving me a tremendous high.
You're not real self. The chitzon is not the real self. The real self is the premise.
When you say the only thing that's toiv be'etzem is a likus, it begins with the person. The thing in me that's toiv be'etzem is a likus, nothing else. The fact that this guy likes me and I'm a celebrity, that doesn't make me toiv be'etzem. It makes me feel good for 25 minutes. It may even be a nice parnasa, which is good. So you're making money, fine. Doesn't make you toiv be'etzem. When a person has a lot of money in the bank, they could suffer from more insecurity than a person who has 5 pennies. It's nice to have a lot of money. We're not knocking it. You could do a lot of great things. But the point is, that's not where your toiv be'etzem comes from. There's people who are very, very successful. Internally, they're messes of messes. They're sometimes worse than a schnorrer who has nothing. Dreht in a mikvah halbetag. Sometimes more zufrieden. Huh? Yeah. So the toiv be'etzem of a person is the likus in him. And that's not going to change. So what he's saying here with another person begins with yourself. In other words, I may be right now feeding off something that's making me feel good, but don't think that's what you should be. That's what you should worship, because tomorrow something else is going to make you feel good. So just like with Halakus, he says, when you have Avos Hashem, and the only reason is because it's inspiring you, that's emes. But tomorrow an Avos Zarah won't cap you. Why? Because you know that Bepnimius is Toiv Be'etzem, and that's going to be there tomorrow also, even if you're not feeling it. So same is true with yourself. If right now the Toiv that I'm experiencing in myself is only because of a certain chitzoni is the thing, let's say somebody's complimenting me, somebody put me on my pedestal, somebody gave me a nice thing. But Bepnimius I have to know that's not my Toiv. So Mela tomorrow I won't be hijacked by something else that will take me away from that. True, today I may be in a relationship and it's making me feel very, very good, and that's what I'm excited about. Okay. But the toiv you want to hold on to is your toiv be'etzem, and then tomorrow you won't be hijacked by other things. You're going to have a very, very powerful trajectory, an Evan HaBoichen. Where to go, where to stay.
He's using the lotion yeshna barakas. What's yeshna?
Yeshna, from the word yesh, it exists.
Right, but no, what's
In Megillah Esther, Haman says, Yeshnoi am echad. Yeshnoi am echad. There exists. Yeshnoi means there exists an am echad mefuzar mefared beinamim. It's an expression in Tanakh, in Megillah Esther. Look at Megillah, it's a word in Tanakh.